Good afternoon. My name is Johnelle Sedlock, and I'm the Active Team Supervisor with TRS. I've been with TRS almost 24 years. Um, so I have some experience in, pre-retirement planning and, getting members retired. So what this is going to do is I'm just going to do an overview of how to complete the retirement packet, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, our agenda is we're going to go through what we call an estimate of benefits. You hopefully everybody got an estimate of benefits prior to um, receiving the retirement packet. So we're going to hit that. We're going to go over the retirement materials packet and some Q&A. So keep in mind this is actually a brand new webinar. I'm doing the first one. So we're going to keep this pretty general, not going into individuals' detail, but just kind of do a general overview, and go through an estimate and the retirement packet. This webinar is actually for members who have received their estimate of benefits and the retirement packet. So hopefully everybody has their estimate in the packet in front of you. And so you can kind of walk through it as I go through the slides. You cannot print that retirement application packet online. So if you have not received that and you're just attending this, please let us know. Give us a call and request that packet, and we will go ahead and mail it to you. And once again, this webinar is a broad overview of the packet, and I'm just gonna walk through each form, kind of go through it, hopefully make it a little bit easier to fill out. And if you have your individual questions and want to get into more detail on your individual information, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Okay, so here's what an estimate looks like. Once again, I'm hoping everybody on this webinar has received an estimate. And so just I'm going to walk through what your estimate looks like, okay? So of course, it's going to provide you your effective retirement date on there, what you're eligible for under your retirement type. So it could be a regular and early. So that shows you what you're eligible for. And whatever salary, three high salaries is a tier one, tier two is a little different, but this is an estimate for a tier one member. So it shows you whatever three highest consecutive salaries that we use and that termination pay here. And so also shows your beneficiary listed. That's going to be your primary. Now, of course, if you have multiple primaries on file, it'll show you multiple names, but in this example, there's just one primary beneficiary. Also shows that, the year of your as the member birth date and your beneficiary, shows termination pay here, and also your total years of service that you would have at the end of as of that effective retirement date. Here is based on who you have listed as your primary beneficiary. This is what is available based on your primary. Now, of course, not all of these benefit allowances are available based on who you have listed as your primary. Now, when you start to fill out your retirement packet and you're like, oh, well, maybe I want to change my beneficiary. Not all these would be available based on somebody else listed as your primary. So, when you're looking at your estimate and you're thinking, well, maybe, I have my spouse now, but maybe I want to pick a child. Maybe I want my daughter listed as my primary. So you'll have to give us a call and request a revised estimate of benefits because once again, all these numbers are all based on the individual things that are listed on that estimate of benefits. So this is where you want to start before you even fill out the retirement packet, okay? Because this is going to give you everything that is available so you can make the best decision for you and your family, okay? Now, we can't tell you what to do. I get questions all the time. Well, what does most people do? We can give you this information and go through it and explain what it means, but we can't tell you what to do. So once again, you want to make sure you're looking at this and think about it this way. When I meet with members, I'll say, hey, do you think, if somebody has their spouse listed and maybe they don't have a retirement benefit, or they don't have another retirement. So are they going to need your benefit to live on if you pass away? So kind of think it that way. Look at this estimate. This is your basis. This is where you're going to make all your decisions is based on this estimate. And once again, once you receive that first monthly benefit, you can't change your benefit allowance election. So you need to make sure that, you understand everything. But we're not going to go through this estimate and explain the different benefit allowances. This is just kind of something where you want to start with. Um, Also, you may have termination pay options here. Um, and in this example, I want to hit this real quick. In this example, the member had not made an election on what they want to do with their termination pay. So if your estimate looks like this, you haven't made that election on what you want to do with that termination pay. So you may have one additional form that was included with that. And that's where you're going to make that election. That has some deadlines. So you want to make sure that Form 129, if that was included, and you want to reinvest that, that's not part of the whole packet that's stapled. It would have been a different form that was included. But that has some deadlines. So you want to make sure you read that fact sheet and look at that form so you're not missing any deadlines. So in this example, once again, this is an estimate that just gives you an example of everything. Now I'm going to go to the next screen. In this example, as you can see, there's some buyback years of service. So you as a member, based on your work history, you may be eligible to purchase, additional years of service. So you would request that. Hopefully you've done that earlier. And if you've ever gotten an estimate that has this buyback available, there's a question on the retirement packet that asks you if you plan on purchasing that. So you want to make sure if you've ever done that, you want to make sure that you've gotten that estimate there because you'll have to make that election on the retirement packet if you want to purchase that service or not. So that's probably all I'm going to hit on the estimate. Oh, and also these dollar amounts are gross amounts. Okay. Your benefit will be taxable, and I'm going to hit down that there's a couple tax forms where I'll go over that a little bit more in detail. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to hit is just kind of walking through the packet. But I think I got a cover sheet next here. Okay, so hopefully your packet had the pink sheet on top. And this is just a cover sheet that gives you the overview of 8 forms. Okay. You have to return all forms and documentation to TRS at least 60 days prior to your termination of employment. And if you change your mind, so I've had members that will fill out the packet, send it in, and maybe their employer can't fill the position, so they ask them if they want to come back. Some will change their mind, and you can stop your benefit, or you can just get rid of that retirement packet, resend that packet before you've received your first benefit, either by direct deposit or the cash paper check. So that is available if that comes up. Then there's the next page is the instructions of how to fill this out. So it goes through, all the forms on here. Kind of gives a description, what we need, what goes on. So just kind of review that. That's just kind of instructions. Read that over before you start filling it out. But I'm going to go step by step through each form. So forms that need to be completed by you. And there is a checklist on the first page, and we'll hit that when I go to the Form 108, but it kind of lists these out. So you as the member need to complete Form 108, and that's your application for retirement. That's a six-page packet. There is an IRS Form W-4P. Those also Form 115, which is your Montana State Withholding Certificate. And there is Form 144, which is going to be your electronic deposit form if you decide to do that. There is some additional forms that you and your employer have to complete. And there's Form 150, verification of wages, Form 144, certification of termination of employment, Form 113, the termination pay form, and there's also Form 117, which is the health insurance deduction form. And once again, I'm going to go individually through each one of these forms and kind of help you just make sure you complete them completely. So I'm just going to switch here real quick to my packet. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this packet. Okay. Um, so this is your first page. This is the beginning of your Form 108, your application for retirement allowance. Okay. So you need to, of course, fill out section 1, which your member information. And we would prefer in dark ink if you can fill that out. And then also, please do not white out or cross out any sections. So if you're filling it out and you made a mistake, please let us know, give us a call, and we can send you up some new forms. But we prefer no whiting out or crossing out in any information. So if you're starting off here, as you can see, just, your first name, all your information, your social security number. We really do like your personal email address because most of our members have a school email address. And then of course that won't work once you retire. So it's kind of nice if we ever need to get a hold of you, we can also send you an email at your personal email. So if you could please provide that, that would be great. Um, your mailing address, your city and state, and your zip code. So down here, as you can see, this is your checklist. So this is kind of what the forms I just kind of went through, but this is kind of just to help you make sure you've got everything completed. So what I suggest is I would go through your packet, and once again, I will do that, but here maybe check this off at the end and then walk through. Do I have this to send to TRS? It's just kind of a little checklist to help you have everything in there prior to mailing that to TRS. So as you can see, there's Form 108 listed. You got your IRS Form W-4P, your Montana State Withholding Certificate Form 115, your application for electronic deposit Form 114, and then there is a couple other things that we require. So no matter what, for you as the member, we do require a copy of your birth certificate or valid passport. It does not to be a certified, it just can be a photocopy of either. And then if you pick a continuing benefit to somebody else, like a joint annuitant, then we require that from them also. So for example, if you're picking option a continuing benefit to your spouse, we require a copy of that birth certificate or valid passport also. We also require a photocopy of your letter of resignation that you submitted to your employer. Now, if you have multiple employers, we do require a letter of resignation from all employers if necessary. So go into the next section, and that is the forms that you and your employer need to complete. So Form 150, this is actually a brand new form that we developed this fiscal year. And what this is doing is this is your employer is going to verify the wages that they reported to TRS. This just helps TRS, my active staff and I, just to make sure that we make sure that everything was reported on your behalf correctly to TRS. So we request your contracts if you have them. So if you're a tier 1 for the last 4 years, and if you're a tier 2 for the last 6 years. And so, and then if you have, for example, let's say that you have a base contract and that you coach also or do driver's ed. We do require a copy of that additional duty contract, or if you do not have a contract for that, we do require additional documentation that provides with those so we can reconcile to what was reported to make sure we're calculating your benefit correctly. Now, note here, you as the applicant are responsible for ensuring TRS receives all required materials. So I know this says that your employer has to fill these forms out, but Form 150 and Form 144, which is your member and employer certification of termination, those have to come back with your packet. We cannot load that packet without that. And sometimes it's hard to get stuff from employers. But you as the member are responsible to make sure that we get that all this packet completed and back to TRS. If it was me, I would suggest that Form 150 and Form 144 you give to your employer, have them complete it, get it back completed, and then send it in yourself. Then you know that it got sent in and you're not having to worry about it. Once again, if we don't get these forms, your packet isn't complete and it could defer your monthly benefit. So for me, I would just feel better of getting those back, and I know that they're to TRS. There's also Form 113, which is the retirement termination pay form. Now, this form, you're going to fill out your member information, sign it and date it. Now, this form, your employer is going to hang on to until you actually terminate your employment. They determine any termination pay, which could be sick leave, payout, incentive, anything that you're eligible for when you terminate. And then they send this directly to TRS once you have terminated. Form 117, authorization for deduction of health insurance. This is just for convenience purposes. If you decide to stay on the school's health insurance, we can deduct that on a tax basis. It doesn't come out pre-taxed or anything. A lot of our retirees will stay on the school's health insurance, and then they just don't want to have to write a check to their employer every month. So they'll sign up for this, and we just send your insurance deduction monthly to your employer. This is just like, once again, it's for convenience purposes. You don't have to do that. So it's just there for you. Section 3, purchase or forfeiture of service. Okay, so this is if that, like before I showed you, that's an estimate that shows a buyback. So if you have received an estimate with the purchase of service, this is where you're going to make your election if you plan on purchasing it, if you have not done it already, or you do not. So you'll look at your estimate, and if it shows that buyback, if you do not want to, if you have not, so if you're looking at your estimate and you don't have any buyback there, that's most likely you've never been quoted a cost. So you would just put no, I have not been quoted that cost. So you would mark no there. Now, if your estimate has that cost on that, then you're going to mark yes, and then you're going to initial, I will complete the purchase or I do not intend to remit the payment. So then we know when we're setting up your retirement packet and loading that to payroll that we need to use that in the calculation of your benefit or no, you're going to forfeit that. So if you have any questions on that, on your estimate regarding that buyback, you always can give TRS a call. Section 4, which is the mid-year retirement, and this really only applies to people that are retiring mid-year. So for example, we have some people that may retire after the first semester, and that would be a mid-year retirement with us. But if you're just going to retire at the end of the school year, which we consider our fiscal year, then you do not have to fill this out. I would just put NA in this section. Section 5, this is your termination pay options, okay? So you're going to look at that estimate, and if you did sign that Form 129, if you had not signed it, it's going to show you on your estimate option 1, 2, and 3. If your estimate just shows you option 1, then you've actually got that form on file and you've already made that election. At this point, you still have time to make that election regarding your termination pay. That form has to be signed at least 90 calendar days prior to your last day of work. Okay, so you still have some time if you have not elected that on that form. If you're wanting to reinvest that, either option 1 or 2, you want to make sure you get that on file pretty soon because that deadline's coming up pretty quick. So in section 5, will you receive termination pay? You're going to either mark no, I'm not, then you'll go to section 6, or you're going to put yes. And then under number 1, you're going to put your estimated termination pay there. Now, we've probably sent you, most likely we've sent you estimates and have an amount on that estimate of benefits listed. You can use that dollar amount, or if you want to get even a closer amount, depending on when we sent you that estimate, you can always contact your employer and get an updated estimated estimation of your termination pay, excuse me. Then under number 2, did you and your employer complete Form 129? And then if you already have, you're going to mark yes. And then if you have it, and like I said, you still have time to do this. So you might be filling that form out at the same time you're filling out this retirement packet. So you're going to either fill out this section based on that form would have been sent with this retirement packet. Once again, it was a separate form, but you could fill that out the same time. And then if you fill out that form, you're going to mark yes. And then you're just going to go, and you've already made that election. Now, the next, if you mark no, then, this is if you've missed the deadline on Form 129. So we have individuals that may complete this and fill this out in March, and they miss that 90 calendar day window. You as the members can still make the election to pick option 1 or 2. It's just that it's going to be on a taxed basis now. So you can still do that. But once again, it's 90 calendar days prior to your last day of work. So if your last day is in May, you still have time to do that. If your last day is in June, you still have time. So you just want to, depending on, that form, if you plan on it, that's where you can complete the rest of this section 5. Now, if you decide that you don't want to reinvest the termination pay, and let's say that you just want the cash from the district, okay? I just want to take the cash. I just want to pay it out to me. then you would go to the bottom of that form on page 2, and you're going to elect, mark the last box where it says, I elect not to use termination pay in the calculation of my benefit. And that is considered option 3. Okay. So that's how you're going to kind of, fill out this section 5. It's all kind of based on what you're going to do with Form 129. And so you should have got that with this packet. It would have been a separate. So if you have any additional questions or get individually, just give one of us a call. Okay, so now we're going to go to page 3. And this is going to be your election of your retirement benefit allowances. Okay. So on this page 3, your first, this is going to be describes a continuing benefit or to have a joint annuitant to leave a portion of your benefit to somebody else. Okay. So once again, you want to hit that estimate because that's all based on who you have listed as your primary beneficiary. Okay. And so, it shows you what is available based on that primary beneficiary. And so if it shows you option A, B, or C, so for example, if you're wanting to pick a continuing benefit to a spouse, okay, and it'll show your numbers, and then whatever you decide to, then you're going to check that box, either A, B, or C, once again, whichever is available based on your estimate, and then you're going to print your name and sign it there. And you're only going to elect one of them. Yeah, so you only make one benefits allowance election, even if it shows you 6 on your estimate, right under those list all. On this packet, you're only going to elect one, either on this page or the next page, okay? So if you decide to go with a continuing benefit to a joint annuitant, then your joint annuitant information is down here. Under your joint annuitant, you only can elect one individual. Okay. So in this example, let's say you have 2 children and maybe you want to pick one of them. Okay. Or you want to list both of them. In this situation, you only can elect one. And once again, I can't stress this enough. You always want to start with that estimate of benefits. That is your start. That gives you all the information. And if you want to, if you're here and maybe change your mind, I mentioned this before. If you're going to change, you want to pick somebody else maybe as a joint annuitant, then those original numbers are going to be based on the original primary beneficiary and file. And we can definitely run a quick estimate and send it to you in the mail. We can actually just update a Benny just for the estimate purposes and show you what would be available based on a different primary beneficiary. Okay. So if you decide now that this page is only going to be completed if you're going to go with A, B, or C with a joint annuitant. Okay. So if you're going to go with none of those, then you could just skip that page. You don't even have to fill anything out on that page. That's only if you're going to elect A, B, or C. Now, let's say that you skip that page. You want to go with either a 10, 20, certain in life, or that normal form amount. Okay. Once again, look at your estimate of benefits. It's going to give you what's available based on your primary beneficiary, and you're only going to elect one of these. So once again, you're not going to elect multiple benefit allowances. I've had it in the past where, a member elected one on page, so maybe they elected option A and then the normal. Okay, you only can elect one of those. So here, once again, if you're wanting to go with a 10 or 20-year certain in life, you're going to mark, or the normal, you're going to mark that box, print and sign your name there. And then on the next, and then that's all you would do on this form. This just kind of gives you an overview at the bottom of what these different options or allowances mean. So you can kind of review those. Um, and also, it kind of goes into, if you're going to do a trust or an estate, that requires a little bit more documentation. So you want to definitely make sure if you're going to do that, you want to read the instructions on here. No matter what, the next page is you have to designate a beneficiary, even if you go with the highest benefit, the normal form. We still require a designated beneficiary. And maybe in the past, you already have beneficiaries on file with TRS. You still have to designate them here. This form supersedes any other beneficiary designations that we have on file. So yes, we still require you to either under on that page 3 under the A, B, and C that you list your joint annuitant there, or you list, if you're going with the 1020 or the normal, that you're going to list a designated beneficiary here. Okay. Now, of course, you can only pick one if you want a primary. You can have multiple primaries. You can have a primary or contingents. Okay. And if you do list a minor child that's under 21, here we do require a custodian listed for them. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that if you do list a minor child, it does require that custodian listed. So you're going to fill this out however you want. And once again, if you go with A, B, or C as a joint annuitant, then you skip this form. This only is going to be filled out if you go with the 10 or 20 or the normal form. So if I go to the next page here, this is your page 6 of your application for retirement, your 108. Okay. And at the top, you're going to print your name there. And then under number 3, you're going to put what your last day of work is here. I get this question a lot saying, oh, well, my contract goes through June 30th, but I always ask, what's your last day of work? So even if your contract says June 30th, if your last day of work is June 6th, your last day of work or PIR day, you're going to put whatever that date is. So if that last day is June 6th, you're going to put June 6th there. Okay. And then under number 5 there, you're going to mark if you've ever been married, I've never been married, or I'm not currently married due to death or divorce. We do require that if you mark death or divorce, that we have the name of the spouse, and the date of the divorce or date of death, please. Now, if you're currently married, you just mark number B. Now, in the first box here, this requires, as the member, your signature be notarized. Okay. And then if you are married, whoops, in the next box, sorry about that. In the next box, your spouse's signature needs to be notarized. Even if you're not picking a continuing benefit to a spouse. If you have a spouse listed and you're married, it does require no matter what that spouse signature be notarized. Okay. The next form, so that should complete your form 108. Now, the next form I'm going to hit is your W-4P, okay? This is your federal tax form. I hit this a little bit earlier, but when you're looking at your estimate, those are gross dollar amounts, okay? Your contributions have come in tax deferred to TRS. So when you start receiving your benefit will be taxable, okay? Now, we are not tax consultants. So, I get calls all the time. Can you please help me fill out this form? This is an IRS form. It's complicated. It's got a lot of info, and we just don't do taxes. So we can't tell you how to fill this out. What we suggest is on this W-4P, if you don't fill this one out, TRS will withhold based on a default per the federal. government. Okay. So there is a default, no matter if you don't fill this out, there's a default set by the IRS. Now, there is that. So you're going to fill this out once again. I have people call me and ask me, how do I fill this out? The best thing I can tell you is consult your tax person. What you can do is, show them your estimate of benefits. Hey, this is what I'm thinking about taking. This is the gross amount. They are going to know about any other income you have or anything like that. So they should be able to help you fill this form out. And all TRS requires is this top form, page 1 of this form. So if you can see, if I go down at the bottom, down here, there's some instructions here. You don't need to send that back. I just need page 1. And then it also gives some more. It's about a 4-page form. Like I said, this is an IRS form. And they require a lot of it. I only need page 1 to be completed and sent into TRS. So the next form I'm going to hit is the Montana State Withholding Certificate. Okay. This is for Montana state taxes. And on this form, if you do not fill this form out, we don't automatically withhold taxes. We will not withhold Montana state taxes. It's not a default like the federal tax form is. This one, if you want taxes withheld for Montana state, you have to complete this form and send this in. So you as the benefit recipient are going to fill out your information. And the state changed this about a couple years ago, that they no longer go off the tax table. So you can't pick married and zero or allowances on this. They ask you to put a flat amount. So as you can see in that box, if you do not want state withholding withheld, then you would mark, I do not want any. Or if you want TRS to withhold taxes, you're going to put that flat amount in there. Okay. Not a percentage. We cannot take a percentage on that. It needs, so once again, this is a good time to show your tax person your estimate, and they can let you know what's a good flat amount to use. And then you would just sign it and date it. Okay? And this just kind of give it some instructions. I get this a question a lot. We have a lot of retirees that will retire and go move out of state. And so I'll get a lot of questions where they'll say, I'm moving out of state. Do I still have to have this taxes withheld from my benefit? That is something that you'll need to talk to the Montana State Department of Revenue. They have some questions like if you have property here, or they have like a checklist. And so that may require you, even if you're not living in Montana, that you still may have to have taxes withheld. So if you have any questions regarding that, I would give the Montana State Department of Revenue a call on that. The next form is our electronic deposit form, which is form 114. Okay, this is if you want us to uh, you know, electronically deposit this in a checking or savings account. Most of our retirees are on electronic deposit. We still have some that have that paper check, but most of our retirees are signed up for electronic deposit. So you as the member and you will become the benefit recipient. You're going to enter in your information there. And then your financial information there. And then you're going to mark if it's a personal checking account or savings account. If it is a checking account, we do require you to get a check and write void on it and tape it to here. Most of the time, the personal savings don't have a check. So if you do go with a personal savings account, we do want you to put your routing number and account number there. If you attach a personal check, it should give us that information right on the check. And then we do ask in number 2, does the account have a joint owner? Excuse me. or beneficiary. You can mark no if you don't. If you do mark yes, then you have to go to the second page here, and then you would put the joint owner information right under there. And then down at the bottom, you're gonna sign as the TRS benefit recipient. You're gonna sign there and date that. And then that concludes that form. So here is our new form. It's Form 150, and it's the verification of wages. And per our state auditors, we have to make sure that everything is reported correctly to TRS. So that's why we require copies of your contracts and any additional documentation that shows what you were paid. And so you're going to fill out the member, you'll complete the first section with your individual information, and then the employer information and instructions. And so that would be filled out by your employer, that employer information. And, once again, we want attached to this form the last 4 years of all your contracts, which means your base contracts and any additional duty contracts as a tier one. If you are a tier two, which you became a member after July 1st of 2013, we need the last 6 years. And then your employer's going to fill out the bottom where that says the employer verification required. They're going to complete that. But we also require that if you don't have contracts for any additional duties, that we get payroll records. So once again, you're going to complete your information, have your employer verify, the employer verification and reconcile to what they reported to TRS. But I suggest that you give this to your employer, have them fill it out, have them get all your documentation. So they should have copies of your contracts, payroll records, all of that, and get that back to them and turn this all in when you send in Form 108. Okay. Then you're making sure that this is completed. If I don't get this, I can't load your application. So it's extremely important. For me, I would feel better if I just had my employer complete it and give it back to me. So once again, this is a new form. And then on the back page of this, your employer will sign and date it and hopefully give this back to you with all the documentation needed. Another form that needs your employer to complete also. This is Form 144, and this is the member and employer certification of termination of employment. Okay. So you're going to complete the member information, your employer information, your employer will need to complete on that. And then that's pretty much all that needs to be done on page one. Page two, it's just instructions, kind of explains, termination of employee, just some additional info for you to read. But you don't need to complete it. So you could go to page 3 here, which where you're going to be is you're going to go right to the member certification. And you're going to go to number 2 and you're going to put whatever your last day of work is, your actual last day of physical work or PIR day. And then it's going to ask number 3, it asks if you have any kind of prearranged agreement to go back to work with your employer. Some people do, but if you do not, if you're just going to retire and be done, you're going to mark I do not there. And then you want to go down to number 7, and it's asking you if you have more than one employer. If you do, then this form, then you're going to mark yes. If you don't, you're just going to mark that they're the only employer. But if you happen to have more than one, then this form needs to be completed by both or all employers that you're terminating from. Okay? then it needs to, your signature needs to be notarized here. And then the next section, which is employer certification, this is going to be completed by your employer. Once again, this form needs to be completed before I can load your application. So this is another form where I would get it, have it completed, have your employer fill out all their information, get that back and send that in with all your other information. This is the form that I mentioned before that your employer is going to hang on to until you actually terminate your employment. Okay, so you're still going to fill out section 1, member information, and then under, whoops, sorry, really fast here. Uh, um, and then under number A, you're going to mark if you've signed that form 129, and then and if you did, which option you elected, you'll sign it and date it there. So if you've signed that form, and let's say you elected option 1, signed it, dated, then you don't have to do anything under option B. Option B is only if you maybe have missed that 90 calendar day window, or if you decided that you did not sign Form 129 and you want to just keep the cash from the district, then that's where you elect option 3. That's just receiving the cash, and that's where you would sign it and date it. So, depending on if you signed whatever, depending on what you did on Form 129 is where you're how you're going to fill out this form. On page 2, so once you've done page 1, you're done. You're going to give this form to your employer. They're going to hang on to it till after your last day of work. They're going to fill all this out. They're going to confirm your last day of work. They're going to verify your last year of wages, just like they did on Form 150. They're going to do the same for just the last fiscal year. They're going to fill out number 3, which is your any kind of vacation payout, sick leave, incentive, whatever your total termination pay is. They're going to confirm that under number 3. And then number 4, they're going to say, if you've signed option 1 or 2 or 3, and then they're going to sign it and date it. And so they're going to hang on to this till you actually terminate. You don't have to worry about this. You just fill out page 1, give it to them, and they'll forward it on to TRS once you've terminated. Oh, and under 113, if you have multiple employers, this needs to be completed also by if you have more than one employer. Okay? And if you received your packet and you have more than one employer, we do have this form out on our website. And we do have 144 out there under our website too, or you can just give us a call and we can send you a couple new additional forms on that. This is your authorization for deduction of health insurance. Okay. This only needs to be completed if you're going to stay on the school's health insurance. Okay. We have a lot of retirees that do. And like I explained earlier, a lot of them don't want to have to send a check every month if they stay on the school's health insurance. So they just like TRS to deduct it and just send that premium to the school every month. That's just, once again, that's just for convenience purposes. It cannot come out pre-tax. It's after tax. And your employer actually, so if you decide to do this, you're going to fill out section 1, sign it and date it, and then this one goes to your employer also. They most likely are going to hang on to this till you terminate also, because a lot of premiums don't change until the fall. So they may not know what your new premium is. But I would just, if you're going to do this, fill out section 1, sign it and date it. They'll do the rest of it. They actually go out and set it up on our system and set up that deduction. Um, You can, if you're on a private insurance, we cannot do that. This is only if you stay on the school's health insurance. Okay. If you decide that you're not going to do that, you don't even have to fill out this form. Don't even send it in, or you could just put NA on it. Okay. Okay. So that pretty much goes through the packet. And once again, make sure you're looking at that checklist on that page 1 of 108. And I would complete this packet and then just go through and mark off on your checklist. Don't forget to provide copies of birth certificates or passports. Your Form 150 should have the contracts included and any additional duties, but double check that once you get it back from your employer, and then make sure that you're included that letter of resignation. It just needs to be a photocopy. I've had people say, is there a format? I've had somebody say, I quit. And then I had somebody write a beautiful poem. So, whatever you feel like, totally up to you, but we just do need to require a copy of that showing that you did terminate. And then also from all employers if that applies. So here's how you can contact TRS. Our main contact for the retirement packet is Kathy Leonard. She's our benefit specialist. So she's our main contact. And then there's mine as the supervisor. And then I have Jesse Hill and Sherry Smith. They're my two benefit officers. And then Jackson Simonson, he is a benefit specialist also. So you can contact, start with Kathy first, but if she's not available, you could just contact me, whoever. Um, but just give us a call if you wanted to get individually, have some questions on your estimate or just have any questions that gets in a little bit more detail. But other than that, that's all I have tonight. Hopefully that answers all your questions. So we're going to be open here for any questions that you have. And I just want to say thank you so much. This is our first one. So hopefully I did okay and answered all your questions. So, if you have time to do that survey, that would help us out a lot. See if I missed anything or if we need to add anything, that would be sure helpful. But thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I will answer your questions. We'll go in order as we have them. First question regarding the estimated retirement benefits, can you explain the difference between the member cost of option and your out-of-pocket expenses? I see both of them as cost I would have to pay, but the amounts that show up for each on my document are very different. So the difference between those two, when we calculate your termination pay on your estimate, we add your termination pay into your 3 highest consecutive for option 1. Now we determine how much that's going to increase that benefit. Then we do an actuarial calculation to determine the cost of that option, so that we know what it's going to cost to fund that additional amount for the rest of your life for your benefit. So that's what the cost of option is. We deduct that cost of option from your termination pay amount. This is going to be a net amount. It'll be after the school has deducted your Social Security, Medicare, those types of withholdings. So it'll be deducted from that net amount. Now, an out-of-pocket happens when that cost of option is more than what that net termination pay is. So if you don't have enough of that net termination pay to cover that cost of option, then that's how you have that out-of-pocket expense. That out-of-pocket expense is the only one that you would pay. That would be a check or money order to us prior to your retirement. So that's how that's calculated. I hope that answers your question. If not, certainly give me a call and we can discuss further. Second question, if a retiree selects option A, B, or C and the joint annuitant dies, it is my understanding that the retiree can pop up to the normal amount. If this happens several years down the line, does the pop-up amount account for the GABA yearly adjustments? Yes. Yes, it does. So if it's, several years down the road, you've already received several GABA increases over the years, then when it pops up, it does consider those GABA increases in those amounts and the calculations. Did I miss one? Sorry. I have this estimated retirement benefit document like the sample shows, but don't remember where I got it. Does it come from TRS or my district? Oh, if you have an estimate for our benefit for your retirement benefit, then yes, we can produce that. If you had one recently and you just don't know where it is, we can certainly send you a copy of that, or we can update it with new information, whatever you need. Just give us a call and we can take care of that for you. Next question, can a retiree elect to continue with their current health insurance, HSA, and pay with their retirement benefit on a pre-tax basis? No, like Johnelle had said, it's if you are taking insurance through the employer as a retiree, that's when you have that option of having it deducted from your retirement benefit. Again, there is no tax benefit to that. It is with after-tax dollars, but it's a convenience so that you don't have to write that check directly to the provider.